everyone. Welcome to our panel, Globalize Your Legal Career, a conversation with international legal professionals. This is presented by Barbary Global in coordination, of course, with Asia. Barbary Global is a proud annual sponsor of Asia, and we help students and lawyers across the globe get qualified in either the United States or England and Wales, and also help them through their journey and pathway in becoming a lawyer wherever they may sit across the globe. We're seeing a lot that the legal field is getting more and more globalized and international. So we wanted to take some time with some of our students and colleagues from Barbary to chat with you all today about the opportunities that lie with globalizing your legal career and how our panelists completed their journey and what benefits it has to their career. So without further ado, we're going to introduce our panelists today. And the format of today's session, I will be the moderator, and we have a handful of questions that we're really going to have a discussion here today about globalizing your legal career and about how to qualify in different jurisdictions and the benefits of qualifying in certain jurisdictions, and really have a discussion between us, and then we'll open it up for more questions. This is going to be very discussion based, so if you do have any more questions about the process, feel free to reach out to us directly, and we'll be happy to chat with you on a more one-on-one basis. So my name is Claire Flores. I am the head of international business development here at Barbary Global. I am a qualified lawyer in the United States and have been working with Barbary and helping students get qualified in the United States or England and Wales for over 8 years now. I have a team across the globe and work with organizations like Asia to really talk about these topics in international law and globalizing your career. Next up, I'll introduce Vivian. Vivian, do you want to say hi?
Sure. Thank you, Claire, for the introduction. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you here. Thank you for the time to join our online webinar. My name is Vivian G. My Chinese name is Ji Wei. I am speaking from Shanghai right now. I work as a business development manager in the Asia Pacific team of Barbary. I'm qualified in New York and China. My main job responsibilities at Barbary include maintaining close relationship with the law firms, agents, distributors, and partners in the region. I also engage with a lot of law firms, universities, and government agencies for B2B business cooperation opportunities. I myself want to become a model for the young lawyers in our region, promote Barbary's US bar and SQE courses, and guide them in this dual qualification process, because I myself have done that. And I'm very proud of myself, and I know there are so many benefits of doing so. Okay, that's my self-introduction.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Vivian. Vivian has really great insight in the Asia market and helps students there on their journey all of the time. Now, Jasmine, would you like to give us a brief description?
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for joining today. My name is Jasmine Grattan. I completed my LLB, which is a Bachelor of Laws in England, and I did an LLM in the US in New York. I then sat the bar exam with Barbary, and then after that, I was admitted as a New York lawyer. I'm currently practicing intellectual property law, and I decided I wanted to sit the SQE as well. So I did that recently with Barbary, sat SQE 1 and passed, and I'm currently pending as an English solicitor and hopefully will be admitted in October.
Great. And finally, we have Siobhan Walker. Siobhan, do you want to say hi?
Thank you, Claire. Hello, everyone. As Claire mentioned, I'm Siobhan Walker, and I am the European Business Development Manager for Barbary. My role is to connect Barbary to organizations such as Asia, and I'm really excited to be here today to discuss all things global and legal careers, and I would like to hand you back over to Claire. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I really want to talk about your qualification journey. So Vivian, why don't you take us through your pathway to getting qualified in the United States and the process of getting qualified as the SQE, in the SQE.
Sure. I forgot to mention that I myself am from China. I'm a Chinese. And so I did my LLB in a law school in Shanghai years ago, and I got qualification in China. But since I always want to work in the foreign direct investment in China, because there are a lot of business there and need a lot of legal advisory there. So I started to work with multinational companies like Fortune 500 companies and the legal law firms in Shanghai office. And I decided to do an LLM in the United States because this would allow me to take the New York bar exam. So I did LLM in University of Virginia. That was years ago. So upon graduation, naturally, so I wanted to get US qualified because it's going to help me to land a job in the United States. So California and the New York bar become the top choices when I choose to take the US bar exam. Most of my LLM friends or UVA friends, they chose to sit for the New York bar. So I did the same. So when I was researching about the bar prep courses, there are a number of companies that prepare students, but I chose Barbary because it's the most reputable company in the industry. So I think that's my qualification journey for the New York bar. And
that's great. Let's turn it over to Jasmine and talk about, Jasmine, your qualification journey.
Yeah, so my qualification journey started during my LLB at the University of Bristol. And while I was there, I was a brand ambassador for Barbary, and that's how I found out that it was actually possible for me to sit the New York bar exam after completing my Bachelor of Laws. So essentially, New York lets you sit the exam if you have a Bachelor of Laws from a common law country. And I really thought it was an amazing opportunity to become qualified much sooner than I'd anticipated. So I returned to the US and sat the exam. And after that, I also realized that I really wanted to pursue intellectual property law. So I decided to do an LLM in IP. And during that LLM, I was also able to complete one of the requirements for the bar, which is the skills competency requirement. So I was able to get this LLM at a wonderful US university and made all these amazing friends, and also was able to complete a requirement of the New York bar. So I was able to be qualified pretty quickly after that. And right now I'm practicing intellectual property law, like I said. And IP is a super diverse field. So I really got to explore that during my LLM. And after that, I decided I also wanted to do the SQE, since I did have this background in English law and they came up with this new system. And Barbary was really at the forefront for me, because when I was deciding to do the bar, it seems like it was the best option, and it was very much the case. For those of you who've seen Suits, Barbary's mentioned several times in the show, so I was definitely familiar with the name. And having been the brand ambassador, I really knew the caliber of the tutors and the quality of the content, and I just knew it was the right thing for me. And when the SQE came around, I knew that this was the sort of learning format that I wanted, and it was exactly the style of learning that I knew was a good fit for me.
That's fantastic. Jasmine, can you tell us more about the SQE and solicitor's qualifying exam, just to clarify what that is for everyone?
Yeah, of course. So the SQE is a new exam that's slowly replacing the LPC, for those of you who are familiar with it. But essentially in England and Wales, to become qualified as their version of an attorney, which is a solicitor, you have to do however long it takes you, a set of exams. And usually that's about over the course of a year. And then after that, you have to do 2 years of some sort of legal training. So it's similar to the LPC, but the SQE actually is more open in that your legal training doesn't have to be a traineeship with a typical law firm. It can be a paralegal role. It can be what I'm doing right now, actually, which is working with a US firm. So it opens up the doors quite a bit for people who have different backgrounds and legal experience. And so it seems just such a perfect opportunity for me because I didn't have necessarily a traditional background and I didn't get a training contract while I was at university. So I thought it was a perfect opportunity for me to be able to essentially streamline the process and become qualified sooner.
Yeah, it's really great how it's kind of opened up a lot. Can you tell us a little bit more about the exemption process and what that means for qualified lawyers across the globe?
Yeah, so right now, England and Wales are currently developing a full exemption list. So essentially a list of countries where if you are already a qualified attorney, you don't have to sit the second exam, which is SQE2, or there are some other exemptions such as for the qualifying work experience that I just talked about. So for me personally, as a New York attorney, there is now a set exemption where I don't have to sit the SQE2 exam. And so that really saves a lot of time, it saves a lot of money, and it's now easier than ever to become qualified in England and Wales, especially if you're a lawyer abroad.
Yeah, it's really great. Jasmine and Vivian, I want kind of your both takes on the globalization of the legal market and what you're seeing in both of your markets or your work that you do, the impact of the US and the UK legal market. I'll send it to Jasmine first.
Yeah, so I specifically work in intellectual property, which is in theory very jurisdictional, but what you often find with bigger clients, especially, is that they really are looking for work that's in multiple jurisdictions. And a lot of them are really interested in pursuing either litigation or prosecution in foreign countries. So being able to say, I have a background in English law, it means that I'm better able to not only advise on possible English matters, but it also gives them the idea that I have a more holistic perspective of IP, which is really important to a lot of clients. And especially with globalization, there's not as much happening in a single jurisdiction. A lot of companies that are creating products or making deals are not doing so next door like they used to be. So being able to have that advantage and being able to market myself as someone who has a more global background has really been an advantage for me. And also, I think, makes me a better lawyer for my clients.
And I think intellectual property in particular is such an interesting one that, as you said, it is typically jurisdictional, but obviously companies want to protect their IP globally. So it is becoming more and more important. Vivian, what are you seeing in your market and with the legal markets and the appetite for qualification and knowing US or English law?
I can tell you that 10 years ago, before I left China for US law schools, I was working for a law firm called Baker McKenzie. They have a big Shanghai office. So the office actually has HR policy that if the Chinese lawyers want to work in Baker McKenzie advising like a big companies like IBM, Google, or Microsoft, they need to be qualified in US. And they need to get an LLM degree or even JD degree so they can get a higher salary in the US law firm Shanghai office. So this is getting very, very competitive. All the young Chinese lawyers, they want to work for the foreign law firms, China offices, because they can get a higher salary, they can be promoted, and they have a better job opportunities in this field. So I would tell you that that was 10 years ago. You can guess how many law firms, foreign law firms, they have offices in China. The number is 185. Wow. That's a lot. And in cities such as Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou, so foreign law firms have cornered all the markets, like cross-border legal practice and high-end commercial legal practice. And the number of representative office, they go up from 185 to 232 in 2020. So that's a lot of jobs. So the young lawyers in our market, they all wanted to get a higher paying job and get work with high profile clients and provide legal advice to the foreign investment. So that's what my observation is in China. And I also see that a lot of foreign law firms, they have offices in South Korea, in Japan, in Australia. So, and they have a lot of business in our region. So the young lawyers, they want to speak the same language with their clients, they want to work, have a job opportunity with their law firms. They naturally want to have the qualification, like such as a US law firm, US qualification, or SQE, UK qualification. So yeah, so I think this is what my observation is, and this is also my motivation to get US qualified.
That's really great insight, Vivian. And I think it speaks to, I mean, the sheer size of the US legal market and the UK legal market. I believe those are the two largest legal markets, first and foremost, the biggest legal sectors. And I believe the last figures I saw, the US was worth 248 billion. And the UK, which comes in second, is the second largest, is at 44 billion. So even though it's the second largest, there's even still a massive shift between those two markets in size. But I think that really just speaks to how much opportunity there is in those legal sectors. And no longer are those legal sectors married to practicing specifically in the States or in the United Kingdom, especially with the openness of the New York and California bar, and now the solicitor's qualifying exam in England and Wales. It really opens up a lot of opportunity for young lawyers to work in more international markets that may not have been available to them. Jasmine, to shift gears a little bit, could you tell us what the differences are between the US bar and the solicitor's qualifying exam, since you've kindly taken and been successful on both?
Yeah, absolutely. This is definitely a question I get asked a lot. A lot of people will ask me like, oh, which is harder, because they're trying to decide which one to do. And I think that definitely there is quite a bit of overlap between the two, in that there's a lot of basic legal knowledge, the sort of thing that you would learn in, for example, your first year at a law school. However, where the content actually differs is that on the SQE, we actually needed a calculator because we were formally calculating things like tax. And that was something I hadn't done before. So I think that for me was a pretty big difference. You had to do math on the SQE. It was basic math, to be fair, but on the bar, you did not. I think one thing that's definitely an overlap between the two is you're never tested on gray areas of the law. It is purely black and white. So everything that has been well established without exception. And it's much easier, I think, to understand that than it is at law school, where you're essentially learning what the ambiguousness of the law is. So I felt that was something the two had in common. And they do cover a lot of the same subjects, you know, like trust and estates, contracts, torts, criminal law. I have to say that civil procedure in the US, I found that to be a little bit more complicated than civil procedure in the UK. So that I found was pretty interesting, especially because, you know, the US has the written constitution and the UK does not. So those were some interesting overlaps that I think I found, but whether or not one exam was harder or easier than the other is very tough to say. It depends on whether you feel that open-ended questions are easier for you to work on, or if you prefer only multiple choice, as the SQE was. So I think both of them have benefits. If you're successful on one, I'd say you're likely to be successful on the other. They both require hard work and dedication in the studying, and then quite a bit of stamina on the day, but they're both absolutely worth doing. And once you do one, it feels a lot less daunting to do the other, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And it is really interesting, kind of the overlap in that they're both common law and a lot of the same concepts, but could also be wildly different law as well. You noted civil procedure, for example. The US system is it's chaotic with the federal versus
Yeah,
the
yeah.
state, and knowing what law, what court.
Mhm.
It's not the most straightforward, even when you learn it in law school,
Yeah,
as a,
absolutely. I
yeah,
think
we
what's
can attest
important
to.
to note is although they are both common law, you don't have to know cases for either of them, which
Mm,
I think is something that does surprise a lot of people. But you don't at any point have to know. I think there's only two case names you actually have to remember, which I think for the bar, like Erie is the one that comes to mind.
speaking of
But
jurisdiction, yeah.
yeah, so it's in that sense, it's a lot more straightforward than law school classes. So if you're someone who struggled with your law school classes memorizing cases, it doesn't happen on the bar or the SQE.
Yeah, that's actually a really great point. Do you need to study necessarily at a university, at an LLM, common law, in order to be successful on the exams? Vivian, what do you think?
Yeah, 10 years ago, when I chose to study in the US, I didn't know that I can actually take the California bar without doing an LLM. Mm. So things are different now. So if you are a licensed lawyer in your home jurisdiction, you don't really need to do an LLM in the United States. Yeah. But for the California bar only. But if you want to do a New York bar, like myself, you do have to take the LLM in the United States, or if you are trained, or if you studied in a common law country. So that's, yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So it's not necessary, technically. Do you think, Jasmine, do you think it's beneficial to get a university degree before you take either the bar exam or the SQE?
So I think, as I said, content-wise, there is some stuff that you learn in law school that does come up on either exam, but I genuinely think that was about 2 weeks of the preparation. So it's not something that is critical in that sense. I definitely feel like I had a little bit of a benefit studying for the SQE, having done an English law degree, but I don't think it was what made me pass. I think it was definitely a helpful foundation. And for becoming admitted as a New York attorney, I used my LLM specifically to complete my skills competency requirements. So that was really helpful for me, but it was not my main intention in doing an LLM, and just happened to be this side benefit. And there are other ways to complete the skills competency. I think that there was a lot of other value in myself getting an LLM. I think that personally, a lot of US companies, when you're applying for jobs, they like to see a school that they recognize. So having a US LLM is really beneficial in that sense. But I think for the bar specifically, it wasn't what made or break it. And then same with my LLB, I don't think it was the thing that made me pass, although I do think it was beneficial.
Yeah, that's really great insight. Um, Jasmine, what in the market have you been seeing that amplifies the US and UK legal markets?
Yeah, so I think what has happened very recently that's I know been in the news a lot has been the Sherman and Sterling and Allen Overy merger. And I think to me that really shows that the two big legal markets are New York and London, and really the importance of being able to work in both. Yeah, to me that merger was just completely confirmed everything that I've tried to be doing in my life, which is becoming cross qualified, and it made me really sure that this was a good decision, because I think that is the future of law, and it's definitely the future of bigger firms. Also, in that merger, there are going to be redundancies, and I think that having both qualifications also not only gets you an edge in entering a firm, but it gives you an edge in remaining at the firm. So it's a great way to stay competitive on your applications, but also if the time ever comes at your firm where there are layoffs, being able to have that sort of extra qualification is something that is really beneficial, I think, not only to the work, but also to your team and to your value at the company.
I think that's really great insight and really interesting, considering what's going on with those mergers, which are seeming to happen more and more often these days. Vivian, do you have anything to add about what you're seeing in the marketplace that amplifies the US and UK legal markets?
Sorry, Claire, what's your question?
What in Asia are you seeing that really amplifies the US and UK legal markets?
I just feel like we actually have a lot of Chinese companies that are investing overseas in the US and the UK. So 10 years or 20 years ago, it's US companies and UK companies invest in China. Now it's the other way around. But the Chinese companies, they also want to know about US laws, UK laws to be better, to invest to better prepare themselves for the investment. So they need a lot of lawyers to help them in this, in their advice.
I agree, and Vivian is working currently with firms that and the Ministry of Justice with the UK that is investing a lot of time in Singapore and in Hong Kong, and there's a lot of appetite in particular in both of those regions, I would say, in investing in the legal market and really shoring up those relationships because the appetite is growing, and of course the technology and industry is growing in Asia as well. That is closing in on our questions. Do we want to open it up to the audience to ask any questions? This was kind of a brief panel discussion on generally globalizing your career, specifically with how it pertains to the US and the UK markets. We have not yet gone into the exact process of qualifying in the United States or the exact process of qualifying in England and Wales, but we are happy to do that if that's something our audience would like to hear. Otherwise, we can open up for questions. No. Okay. So why don't we go to Vivian? Vivian, why don't you tell us specifically about what's on the New York bar exam and the California bar exam and the exact process of becoming qualified in the United States?
Sure. So for New York, because I did the New York, it's a 2-day exam. The first day is the essay part of the exam, and the second day is the multiple choice questions exam. There are 2 multiple choice questions on the exam, and there are 2 twice a year for the exam. It's in July and February. Most LLM students or JD students, they take the July US bar exam, and a lot of LLMs or foreign lawyers, they do the February bar exam. So you can choose which bar exam you want to do, but usually the eligibility requirement and the process takes a while, so you need to consider that. For the New York bar, the eligibility evaluation process takes about up to 6 months. So you need to get all the transcripts from the university sent to the New York bar, Board of Law Examiner directly, and there's no fee for the evaluation. And for the California, it's very similar. The first day is the essay portion of the exam, and the second day is the MBE, which is just like New York, 200 multiple choice questions, and 100 multiple choice questions in the morning, and another 100 multiple choice questions in the afternoon. So there are 2 days. For the California bar exam. There are different locations in California that you can register for the exam. It can be taken, the exam can be taken in the written format, or you can also do it in a laptop for the essay part. Yeah, for the eligibility requirement for California, if you are a foreign lawyer, you need to get the good standing certificate from your bar association, your home country, and send to the California State Bar Association. Sorry, California State Bar. And usually the evaluation process, or we say eligibility process, takes 1 month. Then you will get a notification from the California State Bar that you are approved to sit for the California bar. And if you get approved, you need to pay some money to register for the exam. And this needs to be done for the July bar exam. You need to pay the money in May, and there's a deadline in June. And for the New York bar exam, you also need to pay the money and register a few months ahead of the bar exam dates.
That's great. Are there any other exams you need to take other than the bar exam, an ethics exam, a state-specific exam?
Yes, there is a very important ethics exam. It's called MPRE, Multi-State Professional Responsibility Exam. It is administered 3 times in a year, in March, August, and November. You can register online and pay a fee to do it, but you don't really have to do it in the New York State or California State. You can choose a state that is convenient for you. Yeah, but for the New York bar exam and the California bar exam, you do have to go to New York and California to do it. So that's the difference. And the MPR exam is comparatively a simple exam. Barbary has a free course to prepare you. I did this bar exam. I prepared for only 2 weeks and I passed it. It's a multiple choice questions. And all you need to do is to get 85 points for the New York and 86 for the California. You don't have to get a full, get 80% or 90% correct. All you need is a pass score. Excuse me.
That's great. And we have a question about the New York bar skills competency requirement. And I think that's actually something that became a requirement while Jasmine was at doing her LLM. So I'm going to throw this one to you, Jasmine. Can you explain what the skills competency requirement for New York is? Note that the skills competency requirement is only required for New York, the New York bar. And if there is another way to satisfy it without doing an LLM.
Yeah, absolutely. So the skills competency requirement, as Claire said, is fairly new. So it was while I was essentially in my process, it became a requirement. And I was personally able to complete it through my LLM by taking select classes. And my university specifically helped me pick out the classes. And so they essentially set out which ones would fulfill the requirement. So it was very straightforward to do it through my LLM. As far as I can remember, one of the other ways to do it is by doing certain qualifying work experience. So if you're a lawyer in your home country and you've done, I believe it's 6 months, correct me if I'm wrong, Claire, with any of this, I believe it's 6 months of qualifying work, and it has been supervised by an attorney in your home jurisdiction, and it fulfills certain requirements, which is very well detailed on the New York Bar website. That also can complete it. So if you're qualified back home, this is a great way to fulfill that requirement. I was not qualified anywhere else, so I would have had to have done a 6-month internship or 6 months of legal work, and I was prepared to do so after my LLM because that's what I thought was going to be the process. And instead, I was able to fill it with my LLM, but there are other options to complete it. I believe there's another one as well. Claire, if you want to jump in with that, I'm not super up to date on that, but I do remember that my process was, those are the 2 options I was considering.
Right. And if you think about getting qualified in either jurisdiction, you want to think about it as a list of things to complete. And the bar exam or the solicitor's qualifying exam is really just one of those things on the list, albeit It's the most robust thing that you have to plan and really invest resource and time in, but it's just one thing on the list. For the New York bar exam, the skills competency requirement is one of those things on that list. And also 50 hours of pro bono work is also on that list. So with that pro bono work, you can also often use that 50 hours to complete the skills competency requirement. One thing to note about both the skills competency requirement and the 50 hours of pro bono, those do not need to be completed in the United States. They can be completed anywhere across the globe as long as you have a supervising attorney. You need not even yet be a qualified lawyer in your home jurisdiction yet. I think it does help with the skills competency, but it may not be necessary. It is fairly straightforward to reach the skills competency requirement without an LLM, and we have students and lawyers complete it and satisfy that requirement all of the time. So that's a really great question. We have another US question, so I think we're gonna stay on the US before we move into the direct process for England and Wales. For foreign lawyers who want to enter the US legal market, which do you think is better to take? New York or California? So I think all three of us might have opinions on this. So I'm gonna say what I think first, and then I'll throw it to Jasmine, then Vivian. So it's not necessarily which is better. It's more about what your goals are with your career and what sort of law do you want to practice, and also the pathway. So there are a lot of different things to consider. If you are looking to work in intellectual property, for example, California Bar has a more simple pathway. And of course, it is a major hub for Silicon Valley and intellectual property, and is really at the forefront of technology. So I think if you perhaps studied in civil law and intellectual property and tech are the areas of law you really want to deep dive in, California is a fantastic option for you. If you want to work more on an international stage for a white shoe law firm, do more cross-border transactions with multinational corporations, and really do that transactional or litigation, international arbitration work, I think New York might be better for you. New York is by far the largest legal market in the United States, and it houses all of the top law firms in the globe here. And there's just so much opportunity. There are some drawbacks to New York, of course. It is highly competitive. It's most open for common law educated lawyers. So if you are civil law educated, you would need to get your LLM beforehand. But an LLM could also be really helpful, as Vivian and Jasmine noted, that the LLM can help bolster your resume to work at more white shoe law firms. So it really depends on what you want to do and where you see yourself. And again, we're happy to strategize with you on a one-to-one basis as well. We'll put up some information on here as well, but we work with students, of course, passing the bar exam, but we're also able to dive in, we're also happy to dive in on what your goals are to help you decide what pathway is best for you. So Jasmine, as our New York and intellectual property lawyer, tell us what you think.
So I genuinely don't think you can go wrong with either. I think that California is also an amazing legal market. My personal recommendation, go on LinkedIn and go to the jobs tab and look at what it is exactly that you want to do and see if there are more in California or if there are more in New York. And depending on which one that you're eligible for, you should go for that one first. So If, for example, you can only do the New York one after doing an LLM and you don't want to pay for an LLM, then do the California bar. If you really want to be in New York, I know a lot of my colleagues on my LLM were so set on being in Manhattan, they wanted to do the New York bar. It made sense for them. But I think California is an amazing legal market if you do want to do in-house work, especially as Claire said, if you're looking to work at tech companies, that is the Silicon Valley hub. It's exactly where everything is. If you're looking to focus more on patents, I definitely would recommend it as well. But I don't think you can really go wrong with either. There's going to be opportunity in both places. There's going to be jobs. I think it just has to be really what you feel is personally going to work best for you and what sort of career you're looking at. I think it's also important to note that doing one doesn't close you off to the other. You can always do both. You can do New York first and then eventually do California. That's something I'm always considering because I do think being in-house counsel would be interesting. So it's not doing one path is not going to close the other off completely. I don't think you can go wrong with either. I don't think we know of any people who've qualified in California and said, oh gosh, I wish I'd done New York instead. So I don't think you can go wrong. I think you should go for the one that you're eligible for soonest. And then you can wave in down the road. And also one thing I've noticed with New York, at least, I can wave into a lot of other states. So I'm not completely closed off. And I'm sure it's the same for California. So doing one doesn't exclude the others. I definitely think you should just, if you're going to do one first, go for the one you're eligible for.
That's a really good point you brought up about reciprocity. It is important to note that states have reciprocity with each other, and that if you are qualified in one state, you may, after some years of practice, be eligible to be admitted in others. It is important always, though, to note that the first barrier of entry is always the legal education, and whether your legal education qualifies you to be barred in that state. California and New York are the most open to internationally educated lawyers. So that is just one kind of thing to consider. But yes, as you noted, Jasmine, reciprocity and being able to wave into other states after a couple of years of practice is a really great option as well. Vivian, do you have any advice about New York or California?
Sure. I agree with you guys. Absolutely. I think either bar exam is very important and good to have. And in our market, in Asian market, I think 80% of the international lawyers, they would consider New York as their top choice. But recently, especially a lot of Chinese lawyers, they want to be qualified as soon as possible without doing an LLM, because this saves them $70,000 US in tuition, and also they can study part-time while they are working in their law firm, so they don't lose any of the working time in China. So I would say California bar is also very good because you don't have to do an LLM for the civil law country lawyers.
As long as you're qualified, a qualified lawyer in your home jurisdiction. Yes.
Yeah, and in good standing. Another question that I got asked a lot is which one is harder? When I took the bar exam, there's a no-brainer for me to do the New York because 80% of the friends are doing it, and also the California bar was 3 days long.
Oh, yeah.
It has a reputation of being the hardest one. So a lot of Asian lawyers, they're afraid of the California bar exam because the pass rate is lower. But now things change. It's the same. It's a 2-day exam since 2016. So I wouldn't say, California bar is necessarily harder than the New York bar exam. So, yeah.
I think that's really great insight. And I do also think you brought up another good point on that US LLMs are typically more expensive than other international LLMs. And for the New York bar, you have to have a US ABA accredited on-campus LLM, which is is typically more expensive than other international LLMs across the globe. And unfortunately, it does have to be a US one. We have a really great question as well that I'm going to ask Jasmine and then Vivian, since you both are LLMs. How is the current US legal market? What are the chances to find a job right now after the LLM with your past bar exam? Jasmine, you are our most recent LLM graduate. Let us know how the market's been for you.
Yeah, so I think, so I'm going to answer this in two parts. How is the current US legal market? I feel like there's a lot in the media about layoffs, and I feel like there's a lot of sentiment that the market isn't good. There are hundreds of jobs out there right now, hundreds. Especially for internationally qualified people. So if you are qualified back home, a lot of firms are looking for you. They definitely want a more international group, as we've talked about. Being cross-jurisdictional is such a benefit. And I see so many job listings where they're looking for foreign language skills, or they're looking for foreign qualifications. And there is a lot out there. I definitely wouldn't say that the current US legal market is bad. There are a lot of jobs, and I do think that by doing an LLM, you're increasing your chances even more. And as I said previously, firms really like it when you have a US law firm on there. A US university on there. And I don't think that that's something you can undervalue, really. And even though it's not critical to have that, I do think it's a great benefit. Personally, what I found to be the greatest benefit in getting a job with my LLM was the networking that the LLM afforded me. As an international student doing an LLM, there is an entire network of other students who have also either gone from your home country or are doing the same program and have had similar backgrounds, go through the school and go ahead and get jobs. And they're all so willing to talk to you. I've managed to talk to hundreds of Fordham grads on LinkedIn who are in IP or who are in New York and have careers that were interesting to me. And they're all really open to connect, and your LLM program will help you connect with them. Another thing that I found really beneficial in my LLM was that I was offered an externship opportunity where for credit, I could go do an internship. And so the university helped me set up an internship. And then I went and did my internship, and I got a full-time offer after my internship. So I think none of that can be devalued. I know that an LLM is very expensive, but I think you are more certain to get a job rather than you just entering the legal market cold in that sense. So I did find that my LLM was critical to getting a job after I passed the bar. But I think that's different for different candidates. If you have a lot of connections in the US, I think it would be much easier. But the LLM essentially gave me those connections and allowed me a lot of networking opportunities to really jumpstart my career.
Yeah, and I think two important things that you noted. If you are in an LLM in the US, definitely use your career services, use your LLM, use all that the school is providing you. It's why the LLM is more expensive in the United States. There are very robust career services at those programs, especially at the more elite programs there. They have robust LLM programs and robust career services. So make sure you use those, but also don't limit yourself to just those. As Jasmine's noted, LinkedIn, reaching out to connections. Jasmine and Vivian are both expert networkers. And so definitely reach out to your network as well. Find similarly situated international lawyers that maybe are in the same field or studied in the same country as you, and discuss with them what their challenges are, and really try to map your career that way. I wouldn't just rely on one or the other. You really need to use both and really understand your strengths as an internationally educated student. Understand what sets you apart from the other LLMs in your class. What specifically did you study? What is specifically your niche of law that you want to go into? And what's different about you in general, and what differentiates you from the USJDs, and really kind of harness those qualities and put those kind of forth as you're presenting kind of yourself and your package to future employers and law firms. We're also seeing a lot of lateral moves. I believe in the, it's really interesting. We're seeing a lot of lateral moves, I think, a lot in the market as well. And also there's a major fight for competition and really a really competitive landscape for really good talent. So if you can prove through how you present yourself why you're valuable talent, the market is really great for really top quality talent. So it's just how you present yourself, how to present your best qualities, and using kind of your international background, your language experience as a way to bolster your profile. Vivian, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I think my LLM degree plus the New York bar qualification definitely helped me to land a job in the United States. I got a job from the New York LLM job fair. There's another one in California, and the school, my law school helped me a lot in, helping me with my resume, interview, give me tips. And I also connected with a lot of alumni and friends. So they helped me. I was working for a Fortune 500 company called the United Technology Corporation in Connecticut. They are hiring so international associate who has China qualification, law degree in China, and also the New York bar. So I'm very lucky. I meet their requirement at an interview and I nailed it. So definitely, it's very helpful.
And those law fairs exist specifically for international students, specifically for LLMs all of the time, and they're hosted by the US LLMs. We have another great question about bar prep specifically. Do you have any tips regarding bar prep? Did you focus only on Barbary, or does it require extra work? So we really did want to keep this as kind of a panel discussion before we went down the Barbary rabbit hole, but really appreciate you asking this. And we're happy to tell you even more about it if you want to chat with us about Barbary specifically and the coursework. Jasmine, since you've most recently taken the New York bar, tell us about your bar prep and how you focused on Barbary and how you found the course and what length of course you took.
Yeah, of course. So I did the 6-month course, which is considered more full-time, and it was about 4 hours a day. And I only did Barbary work, and I had no background in US law. I went to high school in the US, but they don't teach you anything about what's on the bar exam in high school. So I had absolutely no background other than my common law degree from England. And that is just what I did. I did the Barbary course. I did the majority of it. So I think about 80% of the course is what I completed. And just on the course, nothing extra. I didn't even Google some extra content. It was just that. I sat the exam and I passed in the 90th percentile. So I can tell you right now, if you do 80% of the Barbary course, you are very likely to do well in the exam. So I don't think it requires extra work beyond the course. I don't recommend looking beyond the course, because I think it's a waste of your time. There's a reason the course is designed as it is, and it's because it has everything you need. It has all of the support built into it, and it has all of the best learning techniques. And there's science that went into it, and you're not going to be able to replicate that by just looking for your own content online. I think the best tip that I have is to just really be organized and to compartmentalize. I think that it's hard because as lawyers and legal thinkers, we try to find patterns and overlap in things. And the way that a lot of the bar questions are set is that it's just one category and it's one subject. And I think I found that really difficult, having just graduated from law school, to really be able to set things into little boxes like that. So I personally put everything into different categories and physically put things on Post-it notes. And that helped me a lot. So I think the best thing you can do is figure out how you learn and how you think, and sort of translate that into the course. But all the support is there, all the content is there. I can't recommend anything else because I didn't use anything else. So I think if you do the course, commit to it, do it, and you're very likely to pass.
Exactly. I think that's really great insight, Jasmine. The Barbary course has been around for the US Bar for over 50 years. We've helped, I think the number is 1.4 million lawyers pass the bar at this point. And it's really seen as a fully realized course where you don't need any supplements. You'll have lectures, you'll have workshops, you'll have hard copy books, a digital bookshelf. The books include multiple choice questions, essay prep questions, substantive outlines, exam preps and tips. And you'll also receive with some of our courses, like the extended course Jasmine took, a mentor who works with you on one-on-one and really checks in with you as well. So it is really a full course that is specifically designed to help you pass the bar exam. Vivian, I want to chat with you as well, since you're from a civil law background and English is not your first language, how you found Barbary and bar prep. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. First, I want to say I really love my law school. I chose a lot of, I gained so much US law knowledge in my law school, such as, but as an LLM student, I have the right to choose any courses, even higher level courses, not like the 1L, 2L, they have to do the mandatory core courses. So I did a lot of like corporation, security transaction, immigration law. So my law school really didn't help me to prepare for the bar exam, I have to say. In the bar exam, they really test you the 7 core subjects that I didn't study in my LLM, such as US constitutional law, real property, torts. These are very hard for me from a civil law country. I've never studied any concepts, especially the US constitutional law. It's so different from China. And also for the New York bar, there are some, you have to understand the intricacies in New York common law, so that the bar exam will test you, but you're not going to study at your LLM. And there's probably a lot of things that I don't know. So I really have to rely on a good bar prep course to prepare me. At least I would say 3 solid months to prepare me, because my English is not my first language, and a lot of concepts such as US constitutional torts, real property, I have no idea. So I'm really lucky that I learned so much and passed the bar exam with the help of Barbary, because it gives everything that I need to pass the bar, and I don't have to study other materials.
Yeah, I agree. And both of you passing is incredible, and we're so glad you chose the Barbary course to do that. Well, we are winding down on time. If there are no other questions, this has been really a fantastic session. I do want to share my screen one more time and put up some resources for you all if you want to reach out and discuss anything more. You can scan that code and book a consultation with us. You can also feel free to visit any of our websites. We will also coordinate with Aisha and send out some collateral and the presentation and some more details in case you want to learn more about getting qualified. But we've been so happy to host you today, and thank you everyone for joining us.